Hey YouTube, so today I wanted to give you a couple quick pointers and lessons on tie rod ends. This is an inner tie rod end here. I have a new one and a used one. And basically what that does is it controls your steering so that you can steer the car. So we have a Chrysler 300 here, Hemi, big V8 motor. Motors are great, transmissions are great, but there's other components on these cars that you'll need to fix from time to time. For instance, the tie rod end. The tie rod ends. This is the inner tie rod end, and there's the outer tie rod end. And those hook into the oh my gosh. You ever have a brain fart, forget what you're about to say? Those hook into the rack and pinion right there, and then that will come from there to this piece here. And what that does is that controls your steering so that you can steer the car left and right. As you turn the steering wheel left and right, this piece will go from left to right, which will turn these wheels from left to right. Now I know you can't see it good, so guess what? I've got a real treat for you today. I've got an assembly already torn apart so that we can see this a little bit closer and observe what is going on here. So this is that piece there, the inner tie rod end. There'll be an outer tie rod end that goes on to this piece here, and it'll connect into that hole there. And what that does is it allows the car to be steered by turning left and right. All right. Now this piece here, this is your rack and pinion here, and this right here is basically the link that would go up to your steering wheel inside the car. And you'll notice as I turn that, see how that arm is moving there, going in and out as I turn that? So that'd be like me steering the car, turning left or right. See that? In and out, in and out. All right, so then you have the inner tie rod end, and the outer tie rod end, as I was telling you, is this piece here. So that piece is gonna go up into there. And these need to be tight. What happens over time, they'll get worn out and jiggly. This one's not too bad actually. But let me show you the inners, and then you can see what I was talking about. So on the inner tie rod ends, you'll notice see how nice and floppy that is? Like, you see that? Well, that's going to translate to looseness and play in your steering. Okay? And as you see the new one, it's solid. It's not moving. You know, there's a ball in there. It will move if you put pressure to it, but in general, it's not moving. Now we also have the outer tie rod ends that we're going to replace. Anytime you replace the tie rod ends, I would suggest go ahead and replace the inner and the outer, because if you just do one, especially if you're doing the inners. Now if you're doing the outers, you might be able to get away with just doing the outers, but if you have to do the inners, you may as well go ahead and change the outer as well, because you know it might not be worn out that day, but you know if it's got some miles on it, who's to say it won't be worn out later on. And you see that's pretty easy to turn and flex. Now also we have the new one. This is the new outer tie rod end for this particular car. And I've had people ask me, like, is it, cost? Should you go with the expensive ones? Should you go with the cheap ones? Which is better? And it's like with anything. It's what you can afford in your budget. But no matter what, even if you get the cheap one, that's probably going to be a lot better than, the worn out stuff that you have on your car. With millions of miles on it. So, go open this up. There you go. That's the outer right there. And you'll notice it's tight and shit. It's tight and stiff as well. Yeah, you can move it, but you have to put a lot of effort in there to move that. So that's your outer, and this is your inner. And you'll notice there's no play in them. Unlike the old stuff that came off. Play. Play. Yeah, so all right, now basically what happens is we'll install those and tie these back together. After you get through this, you will need to line the car up to make sure everything is good and straight. And it helps that when you're doing this, make sure you have your steering wheel turned straight also. That will help with that. A couple other things that you may need to change on a Chrysler 300 is this lower control arm. That lower control arm And these upper control arms are real prone to going bad on a Chrysler and the Dodge Chargers and Magnums. So if you have this particular car and you feel a little bit of wobbling in your steering, a little unsteadiness, go ahead and check your tie rod ends there. The rack, you know, as long as your rack ain't leaking or making no noise and things like that, then that should be pretty good. You won't have to replace it. But if by chance that's leaking, you might want to go ahead and just replace that whole thing. Usually when you buy a whole rack, it'll come with all the pieces and components you need. Till next time, YouTube, if you need, please chat, subscribe, and share this with the world. Thanks for watching.